Are you trying to optimize every second of your life with, 1% improvements? Or are you just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic because, as one of our authors today would suggest, you'll be dead and forgotten in a heartbeat anyway?
That is a rather morbid way to start a deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately for our egos, it is a valid question.
Well, we have a cage match today. This isn't just a book review. This is like a philosophical showdown. In this corner, we have the modern hacker. He says you can program your brain like a computer to get anything you want.
And in the other corner, the ancient emperor. He says, wanting things is exactly why you're miserable.
It's the science of change versus the art of endurance.
That's it, exactly.
Is the secret to happiness getting what you want by building atomic habits? Or is it realizing that wanting things makes you a slave and the only freedom is found in meditations? Today, we are forcing James Clear and Marcus Aurelius to fight until one wins.
Or at least until we figure out how to live without driving ourselves crazy in the process.
The stakes are pretty high. So, welcome to the deep dive. I'm ready to get into it. Today, we are looking at two absolute titans. On my side, representing the learner, the improver, the person who wants to get things done, we have Atomic Habits by James Clear. This is the Bible of modern productivity.
It really is.
It's all about agency, systems, this whole idea that we can, engineer a better life through the aggregation of marginal gains.
And representing the sage, the Stoic, I'm bringing the heavy artillery of meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And this is not about productivity hacks. This is about character. It's about the ruling faculty of your mind.
The ruling faculty.
It's about understanding that life is fleeting, smoke and ash, and that the only thing that actually matters is doing your duty as a rational social animal, regardless of the result.
See, that's where we're going to clash. Because I believe we can control the result if we control the inputs. Our mission today is to stop the echo chamber. Usually you read Clear and you get all hyped up, or you read Aurelius and you get philosophical.
Right, but you rarely put them in a room together and let them have an out.
We're doing it today. So I want to start with the fundamental promise of Atomic Habits, the math. Because James Clear starts with a very specific, very mathematical argument for why we should even bother trying to change.
The famous equation.
Right, the compound effect. Clear argues that if you get just 1% better each day for 1 year, you end up 37 times better by the time you're done. 1.01 to the power of 365 is 37.78.
It's a massive number. But the inverse is, well, it's terrifying.
It is terrifying. If you get 1% worse every day, 0.99 to the power of 365, you decline down to nearly zero. You become 0.03. The argument here is that success isn't some overnight event. It's not magic.
It's a lagging measure of your habits.
Exactly. Your net worth is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your weight is a lagging measure of your eating habits. Simple as that.
So the whole premise is that time just acts as a magnifier.
Yes. Time is an ally if you have good habits, but it is your worst enemy if you have bad ones. And he backs this up with the story of British cycling. Have you heard about Dave Brailsford?
The performance director. I believe so.
Yeah.
But refresh my memory on the specifics.
So back in 2003, British cycling was, it was a joke. They had won almost nothing for 100 years. There was one manufacturer that was so embarrassed they refused to sell bikes to the team because they didn't want the bad press.
Wow.
So they hire Brailsford, and he doesn't come in and say, we need to train harder. He says, we need the aggregation of marginal gains.
Which means all the small things.
The tiniest things. And this is where it gets obsessive. They didn't just redesign the bike seats to be more comfortable. They rubbed alcohol on the tires for better grip. They had riders wear electrically heated overshorts to keep their muscle temperature ideal.
Okay, that's pretty standard sports science, I would think.
Sure, but then they went further. Brailsford hired a surgeon to teach every athlete the absolute best way to wash their hands to reduce the chances of catching a cold.
Right, because if you don't get sick, you can train more. Makes sense.
And they figured out the best pillow and mattress for each individual rider. And they would truck those pillows to hotels when they traveled. They even painted the inside of the team truck white.
Why white? What was that for?
So they could spot little bits of dust that would normally go unnoticed, but could degrade the performance of the finely tuned bikes.
We are talking about microscopic improvement.
Okay, that is obsessive. But did it work?
Here's the kicker. Just 5 years later, at the Beijing Olympics, the British team won 60% of the gold medals available. In London, they set 9 Olympic records. They went from being a laughingstock to absolute dominance, not by one big leap, but by 1,000 tiny ones.
It's a very compelling story. It really speaks to that human desire for control, doesn't it? If we just tweak all the tiny variables, the pillows, the hand washing, the dust, we can conquer the world.
Exactly, it's empowering. But here's the catch, and this is where Clear uses what he calls the ice cube analogy. He talks about the plateau of latent potential.
Okay, walk us through that. Imagine you have an ice cube sitting on a table in a freezing room. The room is, say, 25 degrees. You slowly start to heat it up. 26 degrees, 27, 28.
And the ice cube still looks exactly the same.
Precisely. You've been doing all this work, you've been heating the room, maybe you've been working out for a month or writing for weeks, and you see zero result. It's still just a frozen block of ice.
And this is the moment most people quit. They say, I've been working so hard and nothing has changed.
Right. They hit 29, 30, 31 degrees, still nothing. But then 32 degrees. The ice begins to melt. That 1 degree shift, which was no different than any of the others, unlocked this huge change. Clear calls that the breakthrough moment.
So it wasn't the last degree that did it. It was all the previous work that was stored up.
Yes. He uses the stonecutter metaphor for this as well. You've probably heard it. The San Antonio Spurs have this quote in their locker room.
Right, about hammering the rock.
It's about a stonecutter hammering away at a rock maybe 100 times without so much as a crack showing in it. But at the 101st blow, it splits in two, and the quote says, "I know it was not the last blow that did it, but all that had gone before."
So the modern view is, endure the silence, keep painting the truck white, keep washing your hands, trust that the exponent is working for you in the background, and eventually you will crack the rock.
Exactly, you'll melt the ice. You will be 37 times better. We're building toward a better future.
And this is where the emperor steps in and just asks you to pause. Because while James Clear is looking at this graph going up and to the right, Marcus Aurelius is looking at the paper the graph is drawn on, and he's watching it crumble into dust.
You mean he doesn't believe in progress? That sounds a little cynical.
It's not that he doesn't believe in progress, he believes in nature. And to Aurelius, time is a river, a violent current of events. He writes this in Meditations. He says, as soon as something appears, it is swept away, and another takes its place, and this too will be swept away.
Okay, sure. Time passes. We all get that. It's not exactly a revelation.
But do we? I mean, really, we live as if we have an infinite amount of it to optimize. Aurelius looks at this obsession with future results, this whole idea of being 37 times better a year from now, as a trap. It yanks you out of the only reality you actually possess, the present moment.
But if I don't plan for the future, I'm just drifting. I'm not achieving anything. I'm just, floating down that river you mentioned.
Aurelius would ask, what are you achieving, really?
Yeah.
And who is it for? He has this mental exercise he does. He thinks about the court of the dead. He specifically mentions the court of the Emperor Vespasian.
The guy who built the Colosseum.
The very same. He really says, just look back at Vespasian's court. What do you see? You see people marrying, raising children, getting sick, dying, warring, feasting, flattering, plotting.
Sounds like an average Tuesday on social media, just with togas.
Exactly. They were doing everything James Clear suggests. They were optimizing. They were trying to get 1% better at political maneuvering. They were trying to build wealth. And then Aurelius drops the hammer. He says, and now that life of theirs is no more.
Wow.
They're gone. He says they are smoke and ash and a tale, or not even a tale.
That is incredibly heavy.
It's the Stoic reality check. He looks at Trajan's court, same thing. He looks at his own life. He realizes that obsessing over a breakthrough moment, just waiting for that ice to melt, means you are missing your life while it's actually happening. You're living for a future that's uncertain and, let's be honest, very brief.
So what's the alternative? We just give up. If I'm just going to be smoke and ash, why bother painting the truck white? Why bother washing my hands? It seems pointless.
That is the crucial tension, isn't it? Aurelius asks, what is their worth being highly prized? To be praised? No. To have glory? No. If you're pounding that rock only because you want the glory of it splitting or you want the gold medal at the end, then you're a slave to the outcome. You're a slave to a future that might never even happen.
But Clear addresses this. He actually agrees that goals are a problem.
Oh, really? How so?
He says that goals are at odds with long-term happiness. I mean, think about it. If you're always focused on the goal, you are basically in a state of failure until the one moment you achieve it. And then what?
Then you need a new goal, the hedonic treadmill.
Exactly. So his solution is goalless thinking. You focus on the system. You don't aim to win the championship. You aim to show up for practice every day. You fall in love with the boredom of the routine. So in a way, isn't he agreeing with Aurelius? Focus on the doing, not the prize. Superficially, maybe, but the motivation, the reason for doing it is completely different. Clear wants you to love the system, so you do eventually get the result. He still promises the ice will melt. He still dangles the gold medal.
Right.
Aurelius asks a much harder question. What if the ice never melts? What if you pound that rock for your entire life and it never breaks, and then you die? Was your life a waste?
Oof. That's the difference.
Right.
Clear offers a guarantee of causality. If you do this, you get that. Aurelius offers a guarantee of, well, nothing external.
He offers a guarantee of character. The only thing that matters to Aurelius is your ruling faculty, your reasoned choice in this very moment. If you acted with justice and self-control while pounding the rock, that was the success. Whether the rock broke is, to him, completely indifferent.
I feel like Clear would hear that and say, that's a nice philosophy, Marcus, but I'd rather break the rock, thanks.
And Aurelius would reply, and then what? You break the rock, you die, and you're forgotten. Was all that anxiety really worth it? This brings us right to round 2, the actual mechanism. How do we change? Is it about the environment or is it about the mind? And this is where Clear gets super tactical. He argues we are not these, floating spirits that Aurelius imagines. We're biological organisms shaped by the world around us.
The old, we are a product of our environment idea.
But he gets way more specific. He uses this formula. Behavior is a function of the person in their environment. B equals F of PEE. He tells this great story about a doctor at Massachusetts General Hospital, Anne Thorndike.
Right.
She wanted to improve the eating habits of thousands of staff and visitors, but she didn't want to lecture them or, put up posters. She just changed the architecture of the room.
Oh.
Well, the cafeteria had refrigerators next to the cash registers filled only with soda. So first she just added water bottles to those fridges. Then she placed baskets of water bottles all over the room near the food stations.
And what was the result?
Over the next 3 months, soda sales dropped by 11% and water sales shot up by 25%. And nobody made a conscious decision to be healthier. They just grabbed what was easy, what was obvious. Clear calls this the invisible hand.
We think we're making a choice, but really the menu is making the choice for us.
Yes. He says our nature follows the law of least effort. So if you want to change, stop trying to have more willpower. Willpower is a finite resource. You need to become an architect of your own environment.
Give me another example of this architecture. I'm intrigued.
Okay, a more extreme one. Victor Hugo, the guy who wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame. He had a huge deadline looming, but he kept procrastinating. He was partying, hosting guests, doing anything but writing.
We've all been there.
So he did something radical. He gathered up all his fancy clothes, his suits, his nice shirts, and had his assistant lock them away in a giant chest. He gave him strict orders not to return the key until the book was finished.
Yeah, he trapped himself in his own home.
He had nothing left to wear but a giant gray shawl. He literally could not leave the house because he'd be naked. He was forced to stay in his study and write, and the book was published 2 weeks early. Clear calls that a commitment device.
It is clever. It's very clever. But the Stoic looks at this and sees weakness.
Weakness. The guy wrote a masterpiece of Western literature.
But look at how he did it. He had to treat himself like a child or a prisoner. Marcus Aurelius envisions the mind as an inner citadel, an impregnable fortress.
That sounds lovely, but have you met the human brain on a Friday night when there's pizza in the fridge? The fortress walls get pretty low, pretty fast.
Aurelius writes, "Things do not touch the soul, for they are external and remain immovable." Our perturbations, our disturbances, he says, come only from the opinion which is within us.
Unpack that for me. What does that mean in the real world?
It means the soda bottles are not calling your name. The soda is just carbonated sugar water in a plastic tube. It is just matter. You are the one adding the opinion, "That looks delicious, I need to have it." Aurelius says, take away the opinion, "I am harmed," and the harm is taken away.
So if I'm standing in that cafeteria,
A Stoic could stand in a room lined with soda or cookies or any distraction and not partake. Not because the bottles are hidden, but because his ruling faculty, his reason, simply decides not to. He has this wonderful metaphor about a cucumber.
a cucumber.
He says, there is a cucumber. It is bitter. Throw it away. Do not ask, why are there bitter cucumbers in the world?
I love that. Just throw it away. Don't make a big deal about it.
Exactly. Don't whine that the world contains temptations. Don't demand the world be free of bitter cucumbers or soda bottles. Just step over them. He would say relying on environment design, like hiding your clothes or the soda, is basically an admission that you are a slave to external objects.
But isn't that just
Then he,
arrogant? I mean, Claire would argue that relying on willpower is a fool's errand. We know from research that we have limited cognitive energy. If I have to spend all day fighting these inner citadel battles against the cookies on the counter, I have no energy left for my actual work. Claire's question is simple. Why fight a battle you don't have to?
And Aurelius's answer is just as simple, because the battle is the point. It is a ridiculous thing for a man not to fly from his own badness, which is possible, but to fly from other men's badness, or the world's nature, which is impossible.
So Aurelius is saying, fix yourself, and Claire saying, fix the room.
Precisely. And I suspect Aurelius would view Claire's methods as well as training wheels, useful for children maybe. But a fully realized person, a real man, in the Stoic sense, shouldn't need to hide the remote control from himself.
Okay, so this brings us to motivation. Let's assume we've set up the perfect room, we've locked away our pants, we've joined a running club. What actually drives the engine? This is round 3. Pleasure versus duty.
The dopamine loop versus the call to nature.
Exactly. Clear is all about hacking the dopamine loop. He explains that dopamine isn't just about the reward you get at the end. It's about the craving and the anticipation of the reward.
The wanting is stronger than the having.
Yes. He points to experiments with monkeys. Once the monkeys learned that a light signal meant juice was coming, their dopamine spiked when the light turned on, not when they actually got the juice. It's the anticipation that drives all action.
So how do we use this to our advantage?
Temptation bundling. This is just genius. There was this engineering student in Ireland, Ronan Byrne. He loved watching Netflix, but he knew he needed to exercise more. So being an engineer, he hacked his stationary bike.
Acted how?
He wrote a program that connected the bike to his laptop and his Netflix account. Netflix would only play if he was cycling above a certain speed. If he slowed down, the show paused.
That is brilliant and devious.
He bundled something he wanted to do, watch Netflix, with something he needed to do, exercise. He created a dopamine bridge. Clear says we are feedback loop machines. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. It's that simple.
And here, the Stoic recoils in horror.
Horror. Why? The guy got fit. It worked.
But at what cost to his character, to his autonomy? This student made himself dependent on an external distraction to perform a basic healthy function. Aurelius completely rejects pleasure as a guide for life. He says pleasure and pain are indifference.
So what drives a Stoic then, if not the satisfaction of a reward?
Duty. The fulfillment of your nature. He uses the analogy of a bee or a vine. Does a vine ask for a reward for producing grapes? Does it say, I will only grow this cluster of grapes if I can watch Netflix while I do it?
No, of course not. It just grows.
Does a horse ask for a treat after it runs? No. They just do what is in their nature to do. Aurelius asks, when you do a good act, why do you look for a third thing, like credit or praise or a little dopamine hit?
The third thing. So the act itself is supposed to be enough.
The act is the reward. Being consistent with your nature as a rational, social being is the satisfaction. He talks about the morning struggle. We all know this feeling. You're warm in bed, it's cold outside, you don't want to get up.
I know it well. Clear would say, make it easy. Have your coffee set to brew automatically. Put your gym clothes right next to your bed.
Aurelius argues with himself. He doesn't pamper himself. He literally says to himself, am I made for lying here in the bedclothes and keeping myself warm? Or am I made for work? I am rising to the work of a human being.
I am rising to the work of a human being.
He essentially shames himself into action. He asks, do you not see the little plants, the little birds, the ants and spiders and bees working? And do you refuse to do your part of the human work? He appeals to his dignity, not his dopamine.
That's incredibly powerful. But
Yeah.
let's be honest. Can a normal person really operate on that level? Pure Stoic duty all the time?
It's a very high bar.
It feels sustainable only if you're, well, an emperor or a monk living on a mountain. Clear brings up a really important point here. He says the greatest threat to success isn't failure, it's boredom.
The Goldilocks rule.
Exactly. Humans love a challenge that's right on the edge of their ability, about 4% harder than their current skill level. But what happens when the habit becomes easy? It becomes automatic, it becomes boring. Clear says the only way to become excellent is to be endlessly fascinated by doing the same thing over and over. You have to fall in love with boredom.
Aurelius would actually nod in agreement here. His life was a masterclass in repetition. He was on campaign in Germany for years, fighting the same barbarians, dealing with the same court intrigues day after day.
So how did he handle the boredom without hacking a stationary bite?
By finding the novelty in the microscopic details of reality. He writes about observing the rapid change of every several thing. He'll look at a loaf of bread, for instance.
Be bread again.
Yes. He notices that when bread bakes, it cracks open in certain places. And these cracks, though they are contrary to the baker's art, have a certain beauty and actually stimulate the appetite. He looks at a fig that is overripe and splitting open. He looks at the lion's gaping jaws. He finds beauty and fascination in the reality of things as they are.
So he's practicing mindfulness, basically?
Exactly. If you are endlessly fascinated by nature itself, you are never truly bored. Clear wants you to be fascinated by the craft, how to make the habit 1% better. Aurelius wants you to be fascinated by the world.
I think that brings us to the core of this whole thing. Who is the person doing the observing? Round 4, identity. And this is where I think, surprisingly, our two fighters might actually put down their gloves and shake hands.
The great convergence point.
It really is. Both authors agree that your goals are secondary to your character. Clear has this brilliant concept of the onion layers of change. Imagine 3 layers. The outer layer is outcomes, what you get. I want to run a marathon. The middle layer is process what you do. I will run 3 times a week. But the center, the core, is identity, what you believe. I am a runner.
And he argues that real change has to start from center and move outwards.
Exactly. He says true lasting change isn't about behavior modification. It's about an identity shift. The goal is not to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. He gives this great example of 2 people trying to quit smoking. You offer them a cigarette.
Right.
The first person says, no thanks, I'm trying to quit. Second person says, no thanks, I'm not a smoker.
The second one has fundamentally changed their identity. It's not a struggle anymore. It's just who they are.
Yes. And here's the most famous line from the book. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become.
A vote. I like that phrasing.
You don't need a unanimous vote to win an election, right? You just need a majority. So
Yeah.
every time you go to the gym, even for 5 minutes, you cast a vote for, I am a healthy person. Every time you write one sentence, you cast a vote for, I am a writer.
This is remarkably stoic. I mean, Aurelius speaks constantly of the demon, the inner guiding spirit. He tells us to focus on being a rational social animal. His most famous line is, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one.
That's the exact same vibe. Be one. I am a runner.
It is. Aurelius uses this incredible metaphor of the gladiator versus the pancratist, which is a kind of ancient Greek wrestler.
Okay, what's the difference between them?
A gladiator relies on his sword. It's an external tool. If he drops his sword or it breaks, he's dead. He's defenseless. This is like the person who relies on their habit tracker or their perfect environment or their temptation bundle.
Right.
But a wrestler has his fists. His tools are a part of his own body. They are always with him. Aurelius wants us to be the wrestler, not the gladiator.
So the identity is the weapon you always have with you.
Correct. And that vote concept you mentioned is the perfect bridge. Clear provides the how. How do you become the wrestler? By casting these small daily votes. And Aurelius provides the who. Who is the person you should be voting for?
This is the synthesis. We can literally build a stoic atomic habit.
Go on, I'm listening.
Okay, so your identity level goal is, I want to be a stoic. But that's huge and abstract. How do you do it? You use Clear's system. You cast votes. Vote number 1. I paused for 2 seconds before getting angry at the barista this morning.
A vote for I am patient.
Vote number 2.
No.
I got stuck in a huge traffic jam and I just accepted it without complaining or honking my horn.
A vote for I am calm.
Vote number 3. A coworker was rude and I treated them with kindness and professionalism anyway. You are using the practical mechanics of atomic habits to build the philosophical soul of meditations.
I can completely accept that. Clear's votes are the practical application of Aurelius' philosophy. It turns the abstract command, be a good man, into a concrete daily system. Do this one small thing right now.
But what happens when we screw up? Because we will screw up, we'll miss a vote. This brings us to the final round, dealing with failure and adversity.
The system reboot versus the obstacle is the way.
Clear is very, very forgiving here. He has a simple rule. Never miss twice.
I like how simple that is.
Right. If you miss a workout, you're not a failure, you're just human. But the key is you cannot let it spiral. Get back on track immediately. He says missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new negative habit.
So it's about stopping the negative compounding.
Yes, and he says failure is usually a systems error, not a character flaw. You made the habit too hard. You need the 2-minute rule.
Which is,
Just do 2 minutes. Don't try to run the marathon. Just put on your running shoes and walk out the door. Standardize before you optimize. Just show up. It's incredibly pragmatic.
it is pragmatic. But Aurelius, as always, goes deeper. He doesn't just want you to get back on track. He wants you to use the failure.
This is the famous "the obstacle is the way" idea, isn't it?
Amor fati, love of fate. Aurelius writes, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way.
How does that apply to missing a habit, though?
Okay, let's say you missed your planned workout because you were stuck in a long, frustrating meeting with a difficult boss. Clear would say, that's fine, just make sure you go to the gym tomorrow. Never miss twice.
Right.
Aurelius would say, the workout was not your only training today. Dealing with that difficult boss was the training. That was your opportunity to practice patience, justice, and self-control.
Ah, I see. So the obstacle itself becomes the workout. It's another rep.
Exactly. He uses the metaphor of a great fire. A small fire is easily extinguished by a heap of wood being thrown on it. But a great roaring fire, a strong mind consumes the wood and actually burns brighter and stronger because of it. Everything you throw at it becomes fuel.
That is a crucial distinction. Clear tries to design systems to avoid friction. He wants to grease the wheels. Aurelius wants to consume the friction and use it as fuel.
And when you feel truly overwhelmed, when your streak is broken and you feel like a total failure, Aurelius offers the view from above.
The zoom-out technique.
Yes. He says to visualize the entire Earth as a tiny point in the cosmos. See your entire life as a mere flicker in the vastness of eternity. That habit streak you just broke, it is insignificant. It is dust. This isn't meant to make you give up, but to calm you down, to remove your ego from the equation so you can simply do the next right thing without all the drama.
That is the difference between optimization and wisdom, isn't it? Optimization panics when the graph dips down. Wisdom knows the graph doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things.
Precisely.
So, we fought 5 rounds. We've looked at time, environment, motivation, identity, and failure. Where does this leave us? We need a conclusion. Can these two worldviews really coexist?
I believe they absolutely must.
Yeah.
We need what you could call the active acceptance paradox.
Active acceptance. I like that. Tell me more.
We need James Clear's action to navigate the world. We are biological creatures, after all. We need cues, we need rewards, we need to design our environment because we are not perfect sages yet. We are flawed, we need to put the apples on the counter.
Right. But we also need Aurelius's acceptance to navigate our own minds.
Yes. We can optimize our lives, as Clear suggests, while simultaneously realizing that the ultimate outcome is indifferent, as Aurelius demands.
It's the ultimate hybrid strategy. Let's break it down for the listener. Phase 1, planning. When you're planning your week, be James Clear. Design your environment, stack your habits, make it easy. Don't be a martyr. Put the apples in the bowl.
Agreed? Be the architect. Then phase 2, doing. When you're in the moment, also be James Clear. Focus on the system, not the goal. Cast your votes. Fall in love with the boredom of the process.
And then phase 3, reacting to the results. This is where you switch gears. This is where you become Marcus Aurelius.
Exactly. If you succeed, if the ice melts and you win the gold medal, do not let it go to your head. Aurelius says, receive without arrogance. And if you fail, if the rock doesn't break, do not let it break you. Let go without struggle.
That is the sweet spot, because let's be honest, Stoicism without atomic habits can lead to passivity. You can sit around thinking noble thoughts about being good, visualizing the court of the dead, but never actually changing your behavior. You become a theory Stoic.
That's a real danger. And on the flip side, atomic habits without stoicism can lead straight to the hedonic treadmill. You're just constantly chasing the next level of optimization. You want to be 37 times better than 38. You're never satisfied, and you're absolutely crushed when life throws a curveball that ruins your perfect streak.
The common ground is the process. Both of them, the hacker and the emperor, ask you to focus on the present action rather than the prize at the end.
One calls it a system, the other calls it your nature. But the command is essentially the same. Just do the work that is in front of you right now.
So let's wrap this up with a final provocative question for everyone listening to chew on.
Let's pose it.
If you built the perfect set of habits, if you became the fittest, wealthiest, most productive version of yourself, but you were still anxious, fragile, and terrified of death, Would you consider that a success?
And conversely, if you were perfectly at peace with the universe, totally accepting of fate, but you achieved absolutely nothing, you sat in a room and you let your potential just rot away, is that a life well lived?
That's the challenge right there. Don't just be a learner chasing the next hack. And don't just be a philosopher thinking about virtue in the abstract.
Be a philosopher king of your own life, build the systems of a high performer, but keep the soul of a stoic.
Go build your habits, but remember, the only thing you truly own is your character. Cast your votes wisely.
And remember to throw away the bitter cucumber.
We'll see you in the next deep dive.